It was 5 years ago, and I was a 32-year-old freelance graphic designer. I had just lost my full-time job due to the pandemic. I was broke and desperate, so I turned to Craigslist. Searching for gigs felt normal at the time. Little did I know, I'd never stop thinking about what happened next. I came across this listing. It was for an art installation, and the pay was crazy good. The details were unclear, but something about it drew me in. I thought it might inspire my own work. I sent an email. To my surprise, I got a quick response asking me to come the next night. The warehouse was abandoned. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. The door creaked as I walked in. I felt a chill go down my spine, but I brushed it off. I took a deep breath and stepped further inside. Dust filled the air, and I heard odd sounds echoing around me. I found a few other workers. They seemed distant, lost in their own thoughts. One man in particular, tall with wild hair, wouldn't look at me. That's when the strange requests from the artist started rolling in. Move that pile there. Use only the red paint. And quiet, please. Something felt off. I could hear whispers coming from a room at the back. My heart started racing. I felt trapped. Hours went by, and I noticed workers walking off. Some went in pairs, others went alone. I didn't know if they came back or not. Fear crawled inside me. My stomach twisted every time someone left. Why wasn't anybody else worried? My phone didn't have a signal, and the lights kept flickering. The walls felt close, like they were closing in on me. The air turned icy as the noises grew louder, but the others didn't seem bothered. Then, I suddenly found myself alone in the main room. The artist was standing right in front of me, staring. I wanted to ask him about the others, but my voice wouldn't come. Then, a loud bang echoed from the back. I jumped. I looked toward the noise, but there was only darkness waiting for me. I had to get out. I turned to leave, but the other workers were gone. "Where did they go?" I asked the artist, but he just smiled, a wide, unsettling grin. I felt a chill run down my spine. I bolted for the door, not looking back. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. When I glanced back, the warehouse looked different. The windows seemed darker, and it had grown quiet. I got in the car and drove off, but the images stuck in my mind. 5 years later, I still wake up in cold sweats, haunted by that night. Were those workers real? What was the point of that installation? Something has followed me since then. Then the whispers start again. I think about calling someone, anyone. I just hope it's not too late. The next morning, I woke up in a haze. Dreams from that night tangled together in my mind, blurring the lines between what was real and what was not. I kept hearing the distant whispers, a constant reminder of the warehouse and the strangers who vanished. I had to do something. I needed answers. After days of hesitation, I finally decided to return. I stood outside the warehouse, heart pounding. I didn't want to go inside, but curiosity clawed at me. What if I found them? What if it all made sense? I pushed the door open, the creak echoing like a spoken warning. Inside, the air felt thick and heavy. Dust motes floated lazily in the faint light, and I could see my breath in the cold air. I took a hesitant step forward, but everything felt different than before. The once abandoned space now seemed choked with tension. I moved deeper, straining to hear anything out of the ordinary. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. Nothing answered except the dull hum of silence. I walked past the areas we had worked on that night, but they remained untouched, like a frozen time capsule. The red paint still lay where I'd left it, the odd requests still echoing in my head. As I turned a corner, I spotted something on the floor. A small, crumpled piece of paper. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was an invitation to another installation, dated just days from now. I had to go. I needed to know if the others would be there, if I could find any of those missing workers. Before I could contemplate my next move, I heard a noise, a soft scrape against the floor. Someone else was here. Panic surged through me, and I ducked behind a stack of crates. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as footsteps approached, deliberate and slow. I peeked out, my breath hitching. A figure moved just out of sight, but I could see a hand reaching for something on the wall. A huge, crudely painted mural. My mind raced, trying to remember if I had seen it before. Something about it felt alive, almost like it was breathing. I couldn't stay hidden. I had to confront whatever this was. I mustered my courage and stepped out from behind the crates. "Who's there?" I asked, the question trembling on my lips. The figure paused, and I caught a glimpse of the wild-haired man from my past. My throat went dry. He turned, a shadow flickering across his face. "You shouldn't have come back," he hissed, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "They're here." What did he mean by they? I took a step back, confusion swirling in my mind. Then I felt it. Whispers rising from the walls, wrapping around me like tendrils. My body froze. I was no longer alone. Then everything went dark. I came to in darkness. My instincts kicked in, and I scrambled to my feet, but I couldn't see. Panic clawed at my throat. I focused on the whispers, trying to sense where they were coming from. They were everywhere, echoing off the walls like a trapped echo. Suddenly, a light flickered on. I squinted against the brightness, my heart racing. The wild-haired man stood a few feet away, holding a small flashlight. His eyes were wide with terror. "We need to go," he said urgently. "Go where?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Just trust me." He darted toward the exit, glancing back at me. The frantic urgency in his eyes sent a jolt of fear through me. I followed, my legs unsteady. The moment I reached the door, a figure loomed in the entrance. It was a black silhouette, too large to ignore, blocking the only way out. I felt the air thicken, a sense of dread pooling in my stomach. "Stay back," I shouted. Don't, the man urged, grabbing my arm. "It's not worth it." But the figure didn't move. It remained still, watching us, almost studying us. I swallowed hard, every instinct screaming that something terrible was about to happen. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of threats wrapping around me, pulling me toward the darkness. In a moment of clarity, I remembered the paper I had found. "The invitation," I said, racing to collect my thoughts. "What does it mean?" "The installation? It's a trap," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "They're attached to the mural. It's their way of recruiting." He pointed at the massive painting I had seen before, the one that felt alive. "They take people, draw them in. Don't look at it directly." The murmur of the whispers rose, almost as if in agreement. I dared to glance at the mural behind the figure. It was a chaotic blend of color and form, swirling and twisting, as if it were alive. Faces I recognized flashed briefly in the paint, distorted and pleading. "Run!" he yelled, breaking the spell that held me. I turned and bolted toward the back of the warehouse, my heart racing. If he was right, then the mural had the power to ensnare us. I could hear footsteps chasing us, getting closer. The wild-haired man was right behind me. We darted into a side room, the door creaking loudly as we pushed it shut. I leaned against it, breathless. We were safe, at least for a moment. My mind was racing. "What do we do now?" I gasped. "We wait. They're hunting us, but not for long. I have a plan." His eyes glimmered with desperation. "But we might need to sacrifice something to get out." "Sacrifice what?" I asked, my voice shaking again. He looked grave. "To escape this, we might have to give them something. Or someone." That's when I heard it again. The sound of whispers closing in, louder this time, and the door began to shudder. I pressed my back against the door, hoping it would hold. I could hear the whispers clearly now, growing louder. A chorus of pleading voices mixed with malicious laughter. It felt as though they were worming their way into my mind, trying to pull me out into the dark. "What are we going to do?" I whispered, panic clawing at my throat. The wild-haired man turned, his eyes wide, scanning the room. "Do you see anything we can use?" he asked, his urgency palpable. I looked around. The room was small and messy, boxes piled high with odd trinkets and old furniture. Dust motes danced in the beam of his flashlight. Then I noticed something. A piece of cloth draped over a chair. An old tapestry. It looked heavy and worn, intricate shapes woven into it that reminded me of the mural. "What about that?" I pointed. "It could work," he breathed, moving toward the tapestry. "If we can block the door with it, it might buy us some time." I helped him shift the tapestry, struggling against its weight as we wedged it under the doorknob and into the cracks of the door frame. Just as we finished, there was a loud bang that shook the door violently. The whispers intensified, sounding desperate now, as if we were being deemed unworthy of escape. "We have to hurry," he said, his voice rising. "If they want a sacrifice, we can't give them ourselves. We need to find something else, something from this room." "Like what?" I asked, scanning the cluttered space, my heart racing. It felt like a scavenger hunt in a horror movie, each moment dragging me deeper into anxiety. Without thinking, I opened one of the boxes at my feet. It was filled with old photographs, some faded and yellowed. I picked one up, revealing a family standing in front of a large mural, the same one we'd seen. They looked happy. Too happy. "These people—" I trailed off, realizing the implication. He stepped closer and took the photo from my hands, studying it. "They knew about the mural. They must have been drawn in. We need to use this." "Use it how?" My mind raced. The last thing I wanted was to put myself in their shoes, literally. "We give them something meaningful. Offer them those memories." He glanced at the door as the pounding intensified, splinters threatening to fly off. "It's a risk, but it may quell their hunger for a moment." Before I could respond, he took out a lighter from his pocket and ignited the corner of the photograph. I watched in horror as the flames consumed the image of the cheerful family. The acrid smell of burning paper filled the air, mixing with the whispers, which suddenly quieted in surprise. For a brief moment, the pounding stopped. I felt the palpable shift in the room, as if the unseen entities were considering this offering. My heart pounded in my chest, caught between dread and a surge of hope. "Now what?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the crackling fire. But before he could answer, the door shuddered violently again, a shadow creeping under it. Then it slid open with a creaking groan, revealing the dark silhouette of the figure from before, its outline now pulsating with energy. "Time's up!" I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The figure loomed in the doorway, an amorphous shape that seemed to shift and twist. Its presence filled the room, smothering the air, and I could feel the weight of its gaze, almost inspecting us. "Run!" the wild-haired man yelled. Without thinking, I grabbed his arm, and we bolted deeper into the room. We pushed through stacks of old boxes, tripping over clutter as we maneuvered around furniture. The whispers returned, louder and more frantic than before, as if calling out to us, begging us to stay. I stumbled over a discarded lamp, sending it crashing to the floor, but I didn't look back. The tapestry had held for a moment, but I knew that wouldn't last. "We need to find a way out!" I shouted, fear lacing my tone. He pointed toward a small window high above the ground. "There!" As we ran, I stole a glance at the door, the figure still silhouetted in the dim light. It hadn't moved, but I could feel it waiting, watching. My heart pounded. We reached the wall beneath the window. I jumped up to grab the edge but couldn't reach. My fingers brushed the sill but fell short. The man looked around desperately, his eyes scanning the area. "Is there anything we can use to boost you?" I spotted an old stool, its wood chipped and cracked. That might work. I scrambled over to it, my pulse racing as I steadied it. He helped me hoist it upward, and I climbed on, stretching for the window again. This time, I gripped the edge firmly. "Come on, you can do it," he urged, his voice sharp with urgency. With a surge of adrenaline, I pulled myself up, struggling to shift my weight over the narrow ledge. My feet dangled precariously, and I felt a rush of panic surge through me. Just then, I heard a crash. Something had toppled over. The figure must have broken through the tapestry. "Go! Climb!" he screamed. I scrambled to get my legs over the edge, pushing into the space outside. Just as I felt the cool air hit my skin, something pulled at my ankle, a cold grip, agonizingly tight. I gasped, fighting against the invisible force. "Help!" I cried, desperate. He reached for me, his hands grasping mine. "Hold on." As he pulled, I let go of the window frame, the dark forces clawing at me, trying to drag me down. The whispers escalated into a cacophony of screams and laughter. I felt myself slipping, his grip starting to falter. "I'm losing you," he yelled, his eyes wide with fear. "Don't let go," I cried, twisting to see the shadow beginning to break the window. It was closer now, the figure morphing as it approached. Just when I thought I would be pulled back in, I took a deep breath. In a burst of strength, I yanked myself upward with all my might. For the briefest moment, everything fell silent. The chaos stopped. Then, I felt myself tumbling. I landed hard against the ground outside, gasping for breath as I rolled over to see if he'd followed. But all I could see was the broken window behind me, the figure's shadow retreating into darkness. "Where are you?" I shouted, panicking at the emptiness of the night. Then I saw him, grappling with the edge of the window, his face twisted in pain. "I'm stuck!" he shouted, panic evident in his voice. "No! Don't let it pull you back!" I yelled, reaching my hand out. But as I watched in horror, the darkness enveloped him, and he vanished from sight. That was when I truly understood the danger we were in. I sat on the cold ground, trembling. The silence that followed his disappearance pressed down on me, and I struggled to process what had just happened. My mind raced. Where had he gone? Had he escaped? Or was he lost forever to whatever darkness lurked in that room? I scrambled to my feet, the emptiness around me feeling suffocating. I couldn't stay there, not with the echoes of that laugh still circling in my head. My chest rose and fell rapidly as I scanned the dark space around me. The house seemed to loom larger now, its shadows deeper and more sinister. I had to find a way out. There was a narrow pathway between two decrepit buildings, flanked by overgrown weeds. I took a step forward, the crunch of debris underfoot breaking the eerie silence. I hesitated, memories of the figure in the doorway flooding my mind, a grotesque shape that warped and shifted. What if it followed me through the broken window? Then, I heard something, a faint rustling. It was coming from the path ahead. My heart sped up again. I couldn't tell if it was fear or hope. I wanted to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I crept forward, inching towards the source of the sound. As I drew closer, I noticed an object half buried in the dirt. It was a small box, covered in grime and leaking with age. My breath caught. Out here, in this desolation? Why was it here? I crouched down to examine it, my fingers brushing against the surface. It was surprisingly cold. I hesitated, unsure of what I might find inside. But I knew I had to uncover its secrets. With a shaky hand, I pried it open. The lid creaked, revealing its content. Inside was an assortment of photographs, faded and worn. They were images of various people, many of whom looked familiar. I recognized a couple of faces from missing person reports I had seen years ago. My gut twisted. Who had collected these? My heart pounded as I sifted through them, each image more unsettling than the last. There were notes written on the back of some, strange symbols and dates scrawled in what looked to be a hurried hand. The notes spoke of entries and conditions. It felt like a manifesto of fear, a document connecting the unwelcome past to my current nightmare. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching, heavy and deliberate. I snapped the box shut, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I couldn't be seen here. I needed to hide. I glanced around and spotted a narrow gap between two rusted trash cans. It would have to work. I slipped behind them, squeezing my eyes shut as I held my breath, praying whoever it was wouldn't find me. The footsteps grew louder, the sound echoing through the night air. My heart raced in my chest, each thud seeming to match the rhythm of my fear. Someone was out there, and they were searching for me. Then everything went silent again. I felt pinned in my hiding spot, weightless and tense. But then I heard a voice, low and familiar. "Where are you?" It was him. My heart surged with hope, but I stayed still. He could be a distraction, a trap. "Please, I need you." It sounded desperate, and I could almost hear the raw emotion in his voice. I wanted to respond, to break the silence. But just as I was about to move, I caught a glimpse of a shadow. Someone else standing where I had just been. Two figures. One voice. Panic surged through my veins faster than I could think. And in that moment of indecision, I made my choice. I had to escape before it was too late. I bolted from my hiding spot, heart pounding in my ears. The rusted cans clattered as I stumbled out, sending echoes of my panic into the night. I couldn't look back. I needed to put as much distance as possible between me and those voices before I was trapped again. I sprinted towards the edge of the property, ignoring the sharp branches that slashed against my skin. With every step, the words, "I need you," echoed in my mind, merging with the dread of the other figure lurking in the shadows. What were they doing here? Who were they really? Just ahead, the lights of a nearby street flickered through the trees. I pushed forward, urgency driving my every movement. When I reached the end of the path, I stumbled onto the road, the cool air hitting me like a blast of reality. I nearly collapsed against a telephone pole, gasping for breath. But I couldn't stop. I glanced back, half expecting to see them chasing me. But the darkness remained still. The silence was suffocating, and I realized I didn't truly know what was behind me. I pulled my phone from my pocket, shaking as I tried to unlock it. The screen lit up, and I quickly scanned my contacts. I had to tell someone. I needed help. I couldn't process everything alone. As my fingers hovered over a name, a noise caught my attention. From the back of the house, a sudden crash reverberated through the air. It sounded like glass shattering. I froze. There was no escape now. Someone had to be inside. Someone who didn't belong there. My mind raced to the photographs in the box. Was it connected? A collection of other victims? The pieces of the puzzle felt like they were slipping through my fingers. I feared what I might find if I went back. But if I didn't warn someone, what would happen next? With a shaking breath, I made my decision. I turned and headed back towards the house, my legs heavy with the weight of what I might discover. I moved carefully, listening for more sounds, any hint of movement. I spotted a faint glow spilling out from one of the broken windows. That glow felt ominous, beckoning me. I pushed my back against the wall, edging closer to confirm my fears. I couldn't make out what was happening inside, but shadows danced in the light, twisting into forms I couldn't recognize. Then I heard it again. The voice. "Where are you?" This time it was joined by others, overlapping and growing urgent. I leaned closer, trying to comprehend the shadows, when something caught my eye. A floorboard creaked nearby. My heart dropped. Someone was outside, just beyond my sight. They knew I was here. I took a step back, but it was too late. The dim light flickered once more, and then I saw a figure emerge through the window, cloaked in darkness, but unmistakably approaching. I ducked behind a bush, barely breathing as the figure stepped out into the open. I had to move quickly. I needed to know what they were after. As the figure turned, I caught a glimpse of their face. It was him, the one I had thought I lost. But his expression was empty, as if he had stepped into another world, a place I was terrified to follow. Suddenly a voice rang out from the shadows. "You shouldn't be here." A chill ran down my spine. The danger wasn't just behind me, it was all around me. I had no time to think. My instincts kicked in, and I ran for my life, deeper into the night. I darted into the trees, branches clawing at my arms as I ran. My mind was racing with fear and confusion. Why was he here? What had happened to him? I couldn't afford to slow down. I needed to find a place to hide. The moonlight filtered through the branches, creating an eerie pattern on the ground. I stumbled into a thicket and crouched low, desperate to catch my breath. My heart slammed violently in my chest as dread crept in. I pressed my back against the rough bark of a tree, listening intently. Footsteps echoed in the distance, crunching on the leaves. They were coming. I couldn't tell if it was just him or something more. I felt the urge to turn around, to see if it was truly him, or just a trick of my mind. But I resisted. I knew I was safer as long as I stayed hidden. Then, through the rustling leaves, I heard a voice. "I can sense you." It was low and smooth, but laced with something sinister. Panic surged through me. This wasn't just some lost soul looking for help. Whoever it was, they were aware of my presence. I pressed my lips together to hold back a whimper. Instinct kicked in like a fire alarm. There was no choice left. I had to escape. I looked for a route, scanning for the nearest path. Just then, I caught a flash of movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head and saw a figure. Someone else was there, not far from me. In the dim light, I recognized the silhouette. It was him again, the boy from before, but he hadn't come alone. Another figure stood beside him, watching, waiting. An icy chill washed over me. I couldn't stay in one place much longer. I moved slowly, peeling away from the thicket and sidling away to my right to keep myself hidden. That's when I found an opening leading further into the woods. I dashed towards it, hoping it would lead me away from whatever was about to unfold behind me. As I ran, I heard voices rising and falling, words I couldn't make out but filled with tension. The sound was almost comforting and terrifying at the same time. I needed to know more, but I knew I couldn't stick around to find out. Curiosity could lead to my end. I stumbled upon a clearing, moonlit and open. My breath came in shallow gasps. Ahead, a rotting tree stump caught my eye. I ducked behind it, hoping it would obscure me. I crouched low and listened. The voices had quieted, but that felt more ominous than reassuring. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. I whipped around, but it was too late. Someone had already circled around. Their shadow loomed over me, silent but unyielding. Just as I opened my mouth to scream, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It startled me, the vibration sending waves of panic through my chest. Still, I needed to know who it was. Who could possibly be reaching out to me at a time like this? With shaking hands, I pulled it out and saw the screen light up with a name I never expected to see. Mom. In that moment, I understood that I wasn't just running from a shadow in the night. I was running from the ties that bound me to everything I once knew. Then everything went dark. I woke up on the damp forest floor, my body tangled in roots and leaves. My head ached, and for a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Panic rushed back in as I realized I was still in the woods, alone and vulnerable. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing again. I quickly checked my phone. The screen was blank. No signal. That meant no help. Just me against whatever had been lurking out there. I felt the weight of my situation pressing in on me. I had to move. I took a tentative step forward, the sound of crunching leaves sending a jolt of fear through me. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone following. Nothing. Just silence. But silence only made it worse. It was too quiet. I squinted into the darkness, trying to focus on a way forward. The clearing felt like a trap now, and the shadows seemed to stretch and twist as I moved. I couldn't trust this place. I scanned the ground, looking for any path that would lead me away from here. Then I heard it again. A voice, deep and resonant, drifting from deeper in the woods. You can run, but you can't hide. My breath caught in my throat. The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. I needed to find a way out, but curiosity tugged at me. What could it mean? I turned and ran in the opposite direction from the sound, adrenaline pushing me forward. My feet pounded against the earth, heart racing. I stumbled forward, feeling the weight of time pressing on me. Each second counted. As I pressed on, I stumbled upon something unusual. A rusted fence appeared, jutting out from the ground, like a grim reminder of something long forgotten. It was a barrier, maybe once kept people in or out. To my right, a narrow path led away from it. I followed, hoping it would take me home instead of deeper into danger. Suddenly, the foliage began to thin, and I spotted a light flickering in the distance. Hope surged in my chest. I could make it. I quickened my pace, an almost helpless joy spilling over me. Just as I broke through the last of the underbrush, I stopped. What I found was a clearing, but not the kind of safety I had hoped for. In the center was a small cabin, the windows dark, and smoke rising from the chimney. It looked abandoned, but something felt off. A chill ran through me just thinking about approaching it. That's when I saw it, a figure, standing just outside the door. I froze. The boy from before. He was looking right at me. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I saw something unfurling behind him. A shape, gliding closer. Shadows danced in the moonlight. My heart dropped. Whatever had been hunting me was no longer hiding. I turned to run, but it was too late. The sound of footsteps began to echo, and I knew I had to act fast. Escape. I couldn't think, couldn't allow fear to dictate my choices now. As I raced back to the trees, I heard his voice calling after me again. "Don't you want to know?" A chill ran down my spine. What did I want to know? Then everything went silent. I woke up, disoriented and groggy, surrounded by towering trees. The clearing was gone, replaced by an unsettling stillness. I tried to gather my thoughts, grappling with the last few moments of reality. Had I really run? Or was it a trick of my mind? My heart pounded in my chest like a warning bell as I stood up, shaking the dirt and leaves from my clothes. The shadows around me still held that familiar grip of dread, whispering of what lurked just beyond my sight. I couldn't stay here. I needed to find my way out of this nightmare before it consumed me entirely. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm brewing in my chest, and looked around for any sign of a way forward. Just then, a movement caught my eye. A flicker of light deep among the trees, like a distant beacon, urging me to come closer. My curiosity warred with the fear mounting within me, but the pull was too strong. I stepped cautiously, my senses heightened, tuning into every sound. With every footfall, the forest around me seemed to thrum with an unseen energy, a silent anticipation lurking in the air. As I made my way toward the light, the whispers returned, echoing sweet promises of freedom mixed with threats of despair. "You can't hide from them," they seemed to hiss. "You must choose." I pressed deeper into the woods, my heart racing. The ground began to slope upwards, the light growing brighter. I could feel reality fading, the lines between this world and whatever waited beyond it thinning. Finally, I broke through the trees and onto an old dirt road, illuminated by moonlight. Ahead, the flicker revealed itself to be coming from an old lantern hung by the entrance of an unassuming cabin. My instincts screamed for caution, but I couldn't ignore the sense of safety it offered. I approached, my footsteps eerily silent, each breath a choice in this landscape of shadows. As I reached the front door and knocked, an unsettling calm enveloped the area. Slowly, it swung open, revealing the wild-haired man. His eyes were wide with an unsettling mixture of relief and sorrow. "You made it," he breathed. But the weight of those words hung in the air, and I felt uncertainty creep back in. "Where is everyone?" I asked, fear lacing my voice. He shook his head, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone, or something, to manifest in the darkness. "They're lost." His gaze searched mine. "We have to leave now." "Leave? But why?" "Because they know you're here," he murmured. "They want you back." A chill crawled along my spine, and the vivid memories of the whispers, the darkness clawing at me, surged anew. "I thought I escaped," I cried, but doubt flooded my mind. Maybe I didn't. Maybe this is all a trick. He stepped closer, intensity in his eyes. "You can't let it lure you in again. We must be strong together, or we'll be—" A rustle interrupted him, a shadow appearing just beyond the lantern's light. Instinct kicked in again, and we both turned, eyes trained on the dark outlines encroaching at the edges of the clearing. "Stay behind me," he ordered, but his voice faltered, fear creeping in just as it had before. I couldn't take my eyes off the shadow. I backed away, feeling the heat of panic as the figures emerged, their forms twisted and familiar, faces I recognized from those photographs. I shuddered, thoughts racing. Did they want me to join their ranks? I could see the pleading looks in their eyes, mixed with desperation and twisted smiles that haunted my memories. "Do you understand now?" the wild-haired man whispered, voice trembling. "The trap is not the place, but the invitation." With a heavy heart, I glanced around, feeling the earth beneath me pulsate with energy. I recalled the burning photograph, the memories offered to quiet the call of the mural. Only now, I wasn't sure if it was memories or something more. The figures drew closer, and the whispers grew louder, demanding attention, begging me to surrender to them. "We need to leave. Now," he urged. But the shadows loomed larger, growing denser with every passing moment. "We can't just run. I need to understand," I shouted, battling against my instincts. Yet, deep down, I felt the truth. What lay ahead would either set me free or trap me forever. Then, everything shook. The ground trembled beneath us, as if the earth itself sought to reject the shadows. The lantern flickered violently, shadows warping and merging into a dark mass. I felt a strange compulsion, a force that both terrified and fascinated me. "I refuse to be part of this!" I shouted against the encroaching whispers, desperately trying to assert my will over the chaos. But the shadows swirled, and in a deafening roar, a figure materialized before me, larger than anything I'd ever seen. A monstrosity formed from swirling darkness and intermingled faces. I could feel it feeding on my fear, urging me to surrender. In that moment, everything fell silent again. The wild-haired man stood beside me, resolute. "It's time to make a choice," he said, his voice strong. "Do we fight, or do we give in?" As the figure leaned closer, I felt it invade my thoughts, and I desperately searched for clarity amongst the chaos. To fight, or to surrender. But before I could answer, the world slipped from under me, and darkness swallowed everything whole. I woke up, not in the familiar forest or the cabin, but in an empty room. The walls were bare, the air stale, but I could hear the muffled laughter of children in the distance. I sat up, heart pounding, and blinked into the dim light, wondering. Was it finally over? "Are we free?" I questioned silently as uncertainty pooled in my stomach. The memories were still there, haunting yet tantalizing, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that echoes of that night would follow me. Outside, beyond the walls, whispers began anew, weaving tales that both terrified and entranced. I pressed my palms to the cool, barren floor and thought, who am I now? As I stood up, I looked around, feeling the weight of unanswered questions swirl around me like tendrils of shadow, forever teasing the edges of my understanding. Would I ever know the truth? I didn't have the answers, but I had survived. Maybe, I thought, staring into the unknown. That's enough.